Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first section of the meeting will be recognitions. And I guess we're going to start with the Star Excellence Award recipient. So, Dave?
We're going to do right here. Oh, gotcha. So, all right. Thank you very much. So we'll start with Star Excellence Awards, and I'm just going to turn that over to Erin.
Awesome. So we're excited tonight to honor Crystal Geigley. So if you want to come up to the front here. Special ed teacher at the high school for the Star Excellence Award from the Education Foundation. I know they're here as well to honor Crystal. The Star Excellence Award is the highest honor the foundation can bestow on an individual. The honor is designed to recognize teachers, staff, or community members who have demonstrated an unusual commitment to inspire students to reach for lofty goals. People recognized have earned the respect of not only students, but parents and peers through sustained effort, high moral standards, and the likelihood of enduring beneficial effects on the students with whom Crystal has worked. So if you want to, I know, Joan, you were going to say a few words about Crystal as well from the Education Foundation.
First of all, we want to thank you for giving us this opportunity. We have two teachers that received the award for 2021 this year. And because of the interruptions over the last 2 years, we really haven't had a chance to congratulate them. Last year, we received the nomination papers for them, and both teachers were nominated by parents whose children were taught by them. Our first recipient was Charlene Sillick, and she was a first grade teacher at Trinity Academy. Char has been a first grade teacher at Trinity for 21 years, and she also taught 5 years prior to that before she took the position here at Trinity. Her family, husband and 2 boys, live in River Falls. And I would like to just read a little bit of her nomination paper, a little bit about her. During the school year changes of 2021, Mrs. Sillick continued to prove that she was here for her students. She goes above and beyond with emails to parents and to make sure that everyone has ample access to what is needed for their child. She offers extra meetings, both virtual and otherwise, and to make sure no student is falling behind, she connects with each student and parent to make sure that we know we are all on the same team. She is loving, selfless, kind, firm, and extremely patient. She 100% deserves the Star Excellence Award from the Education Foundation. Charlene was not able to be with us tonight. She had family plans that were already arranged. But she has also submitted 2 grant requests on her own to the foundation, and also 2 other grants from the Trinity School. Those grants were in technology, flexible seating, guided reading, and other projects. So tonight here, we're here to congratulate Charlene Sillick for her dedication to the many students and families that she influenced over her 26 years of teaching first grade. My next appointee here was Crystal Geigley, and I wanted to save this to last because Crystal's here with us. Come on over. Crystal's a senior high school teacher for students with intellectual disabilities. Crystal has been at the Hudson High School since 2006, and for 16 years has guided the students in this program to new heights and ultimately to graduation. Crystal and her husband have a son and a daughter and recently built a home in the Hammond area. I'd like to read an excerpt from her nomination paper. Mrs. Geigley has really pushed our son to work independently, a goal we have had for him for many years. She has helped him navigate the halls at the high school on his own with his cane, and previously he was guided by a teacher. She has him working on his vocational skills. He is now asking for gluten-free options at restaurants and is raising his hand to volunteer answers and information in groups. Our son used to wear a noise-canceling headphones whenever he was anxious about a situation in loud events. With Crystal's encouragement, our son is happily attending these events without the headphones. Mrs. Geigley has helped him to see that he does not need them. Crystal has believed in our son and has helped him to believe in himself. Mrs. Geigley has written 2 educational foundation grants for her students over the years. About 10 years ago, she received a grant to develop a startup coffee shop at the high school that was very successful. At one time when I was subbing in her room, I was amazed at the students handling the product. And as the teachers were coming and going, buying their coffee and paying their bills. At that point, Crystal told me at one point they were selling over 100 cups of coffee a day. Presently, the renovated high school has a coffee shop within the building, but Crystal's students continue to have the opportunity to work in that coffee shop. Another outstanding grant that was submitted by Crystal was for the Rhinestone Raider Adaptive Cheer Program. I believe she presented that to us in about 2017. Her students had the great opportunity to perform at the high school sporting events, and then her grant request was for her group to go, and they performed at the halftime at the Minnesota Timberwolves that year. When I talked to Crystal this week, she commented, "These grants have sure helped me to be the teacher that I am today." So I'd like to congratulate tonight Crystal Geigley for her Star Excellence Award.
Thank you for that presentation. Congratulations to our Star Excellence recipients, and appreciate your work over these years, and hopefully more years to come from Ms. Geigley. All right. Next up, we have the Hudson Education Foundation recognition.
Yeah, excellent. So if we could.
Are the radios
Are the radios here? Okay. All right. We'll do radios first, and then the Hudson Education Foundation.
All righty, thank you. So we have Aaron Moen, Athletics Director, and a few representatives from our state champions Raiders to talk about their accomplishments. Very proud of all that you've accomplished, and it's a wonderful athletic group, and I'll give it to Aaron to share a little bit more.
I will just introduce Sophia Huber and let her speak about their experience. But yes, it goes without saying, awesome accomplishment. And I do have one special thing that we learned within the last couple of days that I'll share after she's done speaking.
Right. I just wanted to thank you guys for having me. It's a super awesome accomplishment. This is our third state champion back-to-back, so it's a super huge honor to be a part of this team and a great way to end my senior season. So I just wanted to kind of recap the kind of accomplishments that we went through. So Little Shoot is one of our invitationals, and we placed in 4th with that for our Jazz, which is what we ended up winning state with, and we were honestly hesitant to take that to state. We didn't know if we would win with it or what we should take. So as captains, we decided we should put our faith in this, and we ended up winning regionals with that piece as well as kick. So it was super awesome. We were regional champions, and an amazing accomplishment through that week of work. And then from there we went to lacrosse, and it was super amazing to be there with my whole team. We drove down there with the bus. We got a huge send-off. It was so awesome. And we ended up again placing 1st in Jazz and then 2nd in kick. So it was super amazing. Again, just an amazing way to end my senior year and be a part of that team and help lead them there. So super amazing. And then we're heading off to nationals beginning of March. So we're super excited to see how we do down there as well. So thank you.
So we received an email that I think everyone in this room can understand made us feel pretty proud. I'll read just an excerpt from it. It was from a DC Everest parent who is a pretty big rival, I would say, of our team. And they battled back and forth over the years. So I'm a parent from DC Everest, and over the past 5 years, I've appreciated how this team has welcomed our dancers and parents to Hudson High School for regional competitions. Although they were competing against each other, the camaraderie and support for each other's respective teams was genuine. The dancers and coaches went out of their way to encourage DC Everest at regionals and at state. As a parent that appreciates school pride and sportsmanship, the community of Hudson should be proud of these dancers and coaches. And I think when I spend time with these captains, Sophia being a large part of that, I can see that each and every day. So I just wanted to share a great recognition from an outside community is also realizing it. So wonderful season.
Thank you.
Great job. Congratulations to the Raiders on another state championship. All right. Great job. Next up, now we'll do the Hudson Education Foundation recognition.
Yes, if they could maybe come on up to the mic and be recognized. Wanted to take a moment to recognize the Hudson Education Foundation. They have been absolutely instrumental in doing wonderful things for our kids and our staff in the district. One of the things that we've been wanting to get them here to recognize them for is I think people have noticed the new message center monument sign out in front of the high school, and that has been a long time project that the Ed Foundation and I have been working together on, and other people in the district, and so it kind of finally came to fruition this fall when we got all the approvals and went through that process, and the Education Foundation funded the entire sign out front there with a donation of, Tim, do you have the exact number?
I don't have the exact number, but I believe it was about $80,000, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Close enough.
Close enough? Okay. Thank
So on top of the sign that they funded, they've also helped out with our wellness initiatives. I think last year's wellness initiative, they helped out with that. We've asked for additional help this year. They have filled, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of grant opportunities from our staff, and then obviously they sponsor our Star Excellence Award program. And so really want to thank them for all that they do for the Hudson School District, and give them an opportunity to talk as well.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Krieger, and again, we're part of the Ed Foundation. This is John Cromer, and this is Joan Thompson, and the rest of our group are either in Arizona, Florida, or someplace else. We're the unlucky ones to be here. But yeah, we are the Ed Foundation, and our goal is to spend money. Spend money on teachers, spend money on staff, spend money on kids to try to help the educational system. We need to get our name out there. We had our own website, the Hudson Education Foundation website, and it was kind of hard for people to navigate and find. So we want to take this opportunity to thank Tracy for being part of helping us piggyback with the Hudson School District and put our Education Foundation website on the school district. So thank you, Tracy. And yes, we were very happy and very enjoyably happy to piggyback and go along with the school district in putting up the sign. We think the sign is terrific. We hope the community enjoys it. And like we have said before, we have money, and we have substantial amounts of money that we need to get out there to the school district, to the teachers. And I'll have John Cromer speak a little bit to that. But thank you very much for allowing us to be part of the school district.
Good evening. I like to say that Hudson Education Foundation is the best kept secret in Hudson. Over the past, it was formed in 1992, and over those past, it's been 30 years, we've spent over $1 million funding programs for. We basically have three categories. We fund student scholarships, so kids will apply, and that goes back to Willis. Willis Miller was one of our founding members who set up a scholarship, and the Education Foundation continues that, where last year we ended up giving out 6 scholarships to students, about $2,000 a piece, so that was $12,000. And then the other scholarships we do are obviously there's the Star Excellence, which you just met Crystal and heard about Shar, and that we also give a financial gift to them as well for recognizing them. And then there's also teachers can issue grants to us, and we will fund. These are projects that require money, and it's not something necessarily in the school budget. So we're there to help out and kind of make those ends meet. And when those projects are successful, hopefully that can get incorporated into the budgeting process. So we just want to say thank you. So
And check out our website. It's on the school district website, so you kind of know what we're trying to do. One person we need to mention, and I think Nick probably worked closely with him, it's Steve Keller. I think Steve Keller and the sign were
Absolutely.
pretty instrumental, so we need to
Absolutely.
mention him. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great group to work with.
Yeah, thank you very much for all you do for Hudson Education, and I know it's been a 30-year partnership, a public-private, great example of how this community supports education and its importance. So thank you for the sign, too. It's, well used, and I know myself, when I'm driving down Vine Street, want to see what the latest is going on at the school. It's really nice to have, so thank you. Next up is our first group of basic nursing assistant students.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're going to invite up Leslie Bleskacek, our School to Work Coordinator, and a few of our proud recipients of that certification. As you know, one of the things we strive to do is increase our ability to offer post-secondary credit and industry certification for students. Leslie's led up some wonderful initiatives to do that, and this is a great example of a wonderful opportunity for these scholars. So I'll turn it over to Leslie to introduce a little bit about this program.
Thank you, and thanks for having us tonight. As you may have recalled from an earlier presentation, Northwood Technical College had provided materials for us to be able to offer a basic nursing assistant class that leads to the certified nursing assistant credential within our high school, and it was a great partnership, and we were all set to go, and then COVID hit. And we weren't really sure when and how we were going to be able to offer this. Well, lo and behold, the stars aligned this coming January, and we were able to offer the course. It's a 75-hour course, and it's extremely rigorous, so much so that it's offered from usually 3 o'clock in the evening, in the afternoon till 9:30 in the evening. These students were there 4 nights a week for 3 weeks in a row, and the state does not allow them to miss a single hour of instruction. So we started with 6 students, and I was a little concerned. Usually there's a little bit of attrition because it is very intense. But I'm happy to say of our 6 students, 100% of them completed. So I'm so very proud of them. They're getting ready to sit for their CNA exam. And as Mr. Grambo mentioned, that's one of the most highest in-demand credentials there is, and is often the entry point to a career in healthcare. So I'm going to let these students introduce themselves, what year they are, and maybe what their plans are for the future.
Hello, I'm Aaliyah Collins. I'm a senior, and I plan on using my CNA to become a registered nurse.
I'm Mackenzie Madden. I'm a junior, and I plan on going somewhere in the medical field, not sure where.
My name is Davi, and I'm a sophomore. I'm planning on using this license to help me get an idea of what I want to do in the future.
So again, this represents about half of our class, and hopefully there'll be many more of these classes to come. So I'm so proud of them for sticking this out. Again, it's no small feat, and I expect great things from them in the future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your persistence in being able to get that program going, and as a father of a nurse who graduated from Hudson High School, I know if that program had been there back in the early 2000s when she was there, she definitely would have taken advantage of it. So good luck to our students in choosing whatever career path. It's almost guaranteed employment at this point for nursing assistants. So thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes. Bruce.
Just curious, how is that funded? I mean, is that just fully funded by the students? Do we take care of that? How is it set up?
There's a couple of different answers to that question. For this specific instance, Northwood Technical College received a grant, so it was completely free for all of our students. There was no charge, even for books.
Huh.
Other students are taking the CNA now. They couldn't make this schedule, but we pay for that through our youth apprenticeship funding. So for any student right now at Hudson High School, they can take the CNA free of charge. That includes the book, the class, and the test.
Just a plug for the TV viewers there, because it's a pretty sweet little deal, so congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again. All right, Andrea, I think you're up for Cheers for Peers.
Yes,
This is what, month number 3 now, I
This
think.
is month number 3, and so we changed up this month so that instead of just focusing on all staff, we're trying to identify different groups, different months. And this month it was special education. It was teachers, support staff, the special ed paras, speech pathologists, OTAs, PTAs, all the different positions. So a wide variety of staff, and we received, I believe, almost 100 different nominations this month, which is super great. And we work closely then with student services in trying to narrow it down because there were so many fantastic nominations. Every staff member who was nominated will be getting an email over the next few days from us letting them know they were nominated and what they were nominated for. So I think staff have been really excited about that portion of the program too. So it's, yes, we celebrate the winners for the particular month, but we also have the celebration of everybody who received the positivity, which has been a wonderful impact. So in terms of the winners, dun, 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 January 2022, the first up is Liz Halama. She was nominated by Brittany Limniak and Heidi Shimon. And a quick summary of the nomination is Liz's interactions with students or staff are always positive. Her positivity radiates to those around her. Liz is always going above and beyond, building relationships with each child in her program and with other kids in the building. Liz is always willing to help out wherever she can without a bat of an eye. She is available to lend a listening ear, share a piece of advice, or provide her expertise in the SLP field. Liz is a shining light in her building that makes Rock a special place to be. Next up is Todd Rizzardi. He is special ed at the high school and has worked for the district for 5 years. He was nominated by Lauren Adderhold and other high school staff. Todd goes above and beyond to help his students access curriculum, self-regulate and grow as individuals. He's not only willing to help kids, but he is also willing to help whenever and wherever he can with staff. Anytime he hears of a challenge that a new special education teacher is facing, he offers to help in whatever way he can. He's always positive and in good spirits, even when there seems to be fires everywhere. His positive attitude lifts up everyone around him. He makes Hudson High School a better place. Then we have Mary Jo Gretz, who is also a special ed para at the high school and has worked for the district for 30 years. She was nominated by Leslie Lawrence, Joy Haig, and Andy Kuffel. Mary Jo has always gone above and beyond to help the students and teachers. Her knowledge of our lectures helps her reinforce during resource period what they have covered in class and gives the students a more consistent learning experience. She also does so many little things to help us teachers that I can't imagine what we would do without her. Finally, she takes the time to talk to us about what we both can do to help the students, and her insight has been very valuable over the years. I have never seen someone more dedicated to making sure that students have every possible opportunity to succeed. The special ed department is lucky to have her. Then we have Erica Strolla, who is a school psych at North Hudson and Holton and has been here for 14 years. She was nominated by Kelsey Austin. I want to nominate Erica because she stands out to me as a natural leader, has such a calm presence, and is a knowledgeable source for all SPED staff. She supports staff in 2 buildings and makes sure that both teams feel supported and advocated for. She cares about her colleagues and jumps in where she's needed. We're very lucky to have her on our team. Then we have Bethany Buttson, who is special ed teacher at Hudson Prairie and has worked for us for 6 years. She was nominated by Sheila Warren, Aria Kreiser, Melissa Johnson, Heidi Aschenbrunner, and others. I am nominating Bethany as she has been the poster of what great communication and flexibility has been in this year of staffing shortages. She is solution focused and as hardworking as they come. Bethany has risen to the challenge to lean in and make sure her students are getting her best, even when there just aren't the hands needed. I couldn't be more proud to have her on the HP team. She gives all of her heart to everyone. I love these. Next up, Steph Ganlin is a special ed teacher at the middle school and has worked here for 9 years. She was also nominated by many people: Eric Johnson, Jamie Vout, Sydney Gerbig, Robin Ekstrom, Angela Gable, and other middle school staff. She goes above and beyond to meet the needs of her students and families this year. She effectively designs and implements specialized instruction and programming for students with significant individualized needs, while also creating learning materials specific to their IEP goals and providing resources for families who are assisting their children in homebound learning. Stephanie cares about the programming for her students' success beyond school. She is an outstanding teacher. Then we have Tammy Schuller, who is a special ed para at the middle school and has worked in the district for 24 years, and she was nominated by Jamie Vout. Tammy's ability to implement accommodations or adaptations in the moment for her students is remarkable. She's consistently looking ahead at classroom materials and assignments to determine how her students will be able to meaningfully engage with the learning activity while also working towards their individualized goals and priority standards. The skill and independence she brings fosters unwavering trust and confidence from her fellow educators, while also promoting student progress and success. Then we have Alyssa Duran. She's a physical therapy assistant at PTA and has worked here for 7 years. She was nominated by Becca Pratt. Becca says that I have a huge appreciation and gratitude for Alyssa and what she does to serve the students and staff in the Hudson School District. Alyssa connects with students very skillfully. Alyssa connects well with staff in a quiet and effective way that instills confidence. She works well with everyone and is wonderful at passing along her knowledge to teachers and paras so that skills, activities, and interventions can be incorporated throughout a student's school day. I would not be able to do my job nearly as well without Alyssa. Aside from her skills and interpersonal connections, she's just a great person. Susan Erickson is a special ed para at River Crescent's, worked for us for 10 years, and she was nominated by Krista Anderson. Although she is a certified teacher, Susan chooses the assistant role so that all of her time can be serving the kids. She is such a natural at what she does, and she pours her heart into it each and every day. As a mom to a child with special needs, she gets it on a whole different level, and now she's learning how to write a grant in an effort to make our early childhood playground space more accessible to all children. She is truly a gem, and the district is so lucky to have her. And then we have Carter Swiderski. He's a special ed teacher at Willow River and has worked for the district for 3 years. Was nominated by Chris Reckinger, Christina Doberstein, Katie Zern, and Teresa Berg. Carter meets the challenges of his students every day without giving up. He is consistent and has high expectations. When I have observed him working with his students, he always has their safety and well-being as his top priorities. He has risen above some challenging situations this year. He's still a new teacher, but uses the finesse and skills of a seasoned veteran. So I believe that's the last of them. And it was really hard to pick the winners because, again, it was such a fantastic group of nominees. And thankful for the Student Services Department to help us narrow it down. And this next month, we are looking at specials teachers. So art, music, PE, media, as well as like elective classes at the secondary level. So next month, that'll be what we're talking about. So excited to celebrate them, and they each get a gift basket as part of winning the award.
All right, let's give them a round of applause. Yeah, I just hope we can keep this up. This is a fun part of every meeting, but just to hear all these stories, see some of these people being nominated by half a dozen or more people, it's clearly recognition is there, and the work they do, I guess it makes our special ed program, something that we can be really proud of. And I had to ask our superintendent, how many people are on IEPs? And if it's around 1 in 8, about 13%, that would be about 650. Is that a fair estimate?
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit over 700 the last time we pulled that data. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's just amazing. So yeah, that's less than 1 in 8 students that are on IEPs and have to be followed up. So just outstanding group throughout all our buildings. So thank you for your service, and thank you for giving them recognition. All right, next up we have citizens' right to speak or request to speak in non-action items. Tim, do we have anyone that's come forward? All right, doesn't look like it. So we'll move into Dr. Aulette's portion of the meeting, superintendent reports. And guess what? He gets to start off with his 24th COVID-19 operational update.
I think it might even be 48th when you think about it, because
Yeah, we do them at the work sessions too, but these are the ones that are televised. So.
So a couple things on COVID. We've been, I think the good thing is these updates are getting shorter and shorter. Our case counts are way down. Just to give you an idea, the Monday we came back from winter break, we had 63 cases reported that day. So we take Saturday, Sunday, Monday cases. Then it jumped to 77 the following Monday, 75 the Monday after that, then 56, then 28. Then last week on the 7th, we had 10 cases over the weekend. And happy to report that today we had 1 case over the weekend. And just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea, in the first 3 weeks of January, we had more cases than we had in the entire year last year. But now, last week, we had a combined total last week of only 15 cases. And so, I think we definitely have gotten over that hump. Not ready to unfurl the mission accomplished banner just yet. That seems to jinx people when they do that. But I think things are definitely in a good spot. We are back to about as normal as it gets in the district, running about as normal as it gets. We have field trips running, concerts, games, masks are optional. We're allowing volunteers into the buildings. The one thing that's going to change coming up, starting tomorrow, we've had such few case counts across the district that, back when we came back in January, we moved away from daily letters at the middle school and high school, and we still were doing them at the elementary school. And so with our case counts down, I think, our plan now is to go away from the daily letters. We'll still post all of the cases on our website. People can look and see by building how many new cases every single day. And that'll be updated daily. And then if things continue down the path they're on, which is, low case counts, then I think we'll move to updating the website once a week. Many other districts have kind of already done that. So we'll probably be updating that then on Fridays of what our cases are for the week. But, we're just, again, it's kind of a gradual release model, getting back to normalcy. And I think it's feeling good for a lot of people right now, and we want to continue to go down that path. Questions or comments, board members?
Anyone want to talk more about COVID?
Just
Go ahead.
happy to see it.
Yes. Yeah. Amen.
Yep. So next thing on the superintendent's report is school board candidate forum, February 15th, 6:30, the high school auditorium. This is sponsored by the parent group at the middle school. So this will also be televised, I believe, on the River Channel and recorded, and so people can watch that later on YouTube if they're not able to make it. But it is at 6:30 tomorrow evening at the high school in the high school auditorium. Next up, we have the January official student count. Tim, I don't know if you want to take it.
Sure. So we're overall in the count this year from September to January, we're down 17 resident students overall. We normally see, the past few years, we've seen that go up normally in January. When we look at some of those reasons, looking at the, down at the very bottom, Tim, if you scroll down to our homeschool numbers there, and those are somewhat of a self-report, and we collect that information. But I really concentrate on January's numbers for that, because that's when we think we probably got the best number that we've got. But pre-pandemic, January of 2020, we were at 145 homeschooled kids. And of course, as we talked about before, we had that large drop of about 240 kids during the pandemic in 2021, and so that was about 200. That went up to 258. I think that's the highest that we've ever seen that number. So at this point, we stand at 175. So we think we've gained some of those kids back, but not all. When we look more at a long-term basis, our enrollment numbers, as we've talked about before, and I'll bring forward another report next month that will show really longer-term trends, but we've remained flat prior to the pandemic, and then dropped down. We dropped down to 240 students. So, as we go forward, of course, on the agenda later tonight is talking about enrollment projections proposal. So it'll be important to project out and kind of figure out where we're going in the future with that. But the last few years we've been flat as far as our students, and this year we're kind of slightly decreasing.
So combined over the last 2 years, just kind of where we're sitting right now, we're down about 270 students in the last 2 years. It's something we're going to talk about a little bit later in the meeting with the enrollment and the elementary facilities conversation, but it's definitely a concern. And I think what people have to understand, that although it's not all about money, we're funded based on the number of kids we have in our district. And so when we have fewer kids, we get less dollars coming in, and you can't always do reductions that equate exactly to those dollars that leave, because as much as we'd like to say we're down a specific amount of kids in any one building or any one grade level, this is spread out over the course of essentially 13 grades, kindergarten through 12th grade. And so you might lose one or two here and one or two here, and before you know it, you're down that number, but it's not enough to drop a section, or and so that's why we tend to stair step down when we do make reductions, as opposed to a straight line as we work through it. So questions?
Mr. President?
Bruce.
What's the conversion from St. Pat's and Trinity, I mean, it's not 100%. So I'm just, I was looking at that earlier to think, will we get over 400 for these incoming 8th graders with St. Pat's and Trinity?
I think it's, we usually will pick up, and it's not just St. Pat's and Trinity's because we have some other private schools, but I mean, typically we've picked up 40 to 50 kids, 8th grade to freshman. But if you look at even Trinity and St. Pat's numbers, they don't have, there's not 40 kids between the two of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do pick up a large percentage of their 8th graders coming into 9th graders. But it does fluctuate every year.
Okay.
So our grades are, they're definitely down.
No doubt, and they'll still be down, and even just looking down from there. And normally, our if you scroll up a little bit, Tim, just even looking to see where our numbers are at, like from September to January, it's a little surprising. At least in a few schools, it seemed like we would have more incoming throughout the year, and that's pretty flat. All things considered, with North Hudson being down, Willow River being down, Holton being down, it just seemed a little shocking to me earlier when I was looking at those numbers. So hopefully, we're going to see that turn at some point in time. I mean, it is a great community, and people do love coming here. I recognize the housing situation isn't great, but doesn't take away from what an amazing school district we have. So, this I think will have its turn at some point in time, but clearly it's not there today, and hopefully it's something we as a city can figure out, because we put a good product out there from an education perspective.
Heather, do you have a question?
I do. Can you scroll back down to the homeschool numbers? Is the second to last column ungraded? Is that students who don't submit
correct.
a grade?
Correct.
Because more
Yeah.
than half of the increases in that column, do we have a sense age-wise for those kids? Are they spread across the board, or do we really not know anything about them?
I don't, Tim, do you have any information to add? I don't know. They're not, they're not designated a grade, so, it's tough for us to get information on it, quite frankly.
All right, I guess I was kind of thinking that the 16 student reduction at the high school might be due to some students graduating, in December and not needing to attend in the spring. But we actually only lost 2 seniors, where we had the greatest loss was freshmen, sophomore, juniors. So,
Yeah, and actually the semester, graduating early in semester actually would have happened after this count day, because our semester happens after. Because in January it's the second Friday, in September it's the third Friday that these two counts happen. But it's one of the things that we used to pride ourselves on, obviously, was in migration. Our grades grew by influx of kids moving in after kindergarten. We're not seeing that right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get down to the elementary facilities and enrollment projections proposals.
and just if, Tim, you could explain the open enrollment columns. We have OE, OD, and OEID. I think open enrollment out of the district and open enrollment into the district.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. So this is a bright spot in the report. When you look at our open enrollment out is 159 kids, and our open enrollment in is 173. So a lot of times we were more deficit, more open enrollment out than we had coming in. And this is the second year where we've seen that on the plus side for us. So that's pretty helpful.
All right.
And that deficit has been as high, at least in the last 7 years that I've been here, as high as almost $1 million deficit.
Yes. Yeah. Financially, it's a big hit.
It's a huge hit. So we've done a great job trying to make that turn, to keep more of our kids in, and then also attract kids from other districts.
When for a while we shut it down.
Yep.
Like, we didn't let
Yep.
anyone in, and I think it was unfortunately turned out to be a real bad message. Granted, I recognize our schools were full, but You know, hindsight is 20/20. I think it's a matter of just making sure we're making good decisions here, and I don't think there's many bad things that people are going to say about this district. So it's only an opportunity for us to continue to turn that up. So I hope y'all can.
Yeah. And the one question on follow-up to the open enrollment, I just noticed that Rivercrest has the biggest open enrollment of the elementary schools, open enrollment in, followed by Holton and North Hudson, and just wondering what determines which school that folks get to open enroll in. I'm assuming it's personnel, right?
And sections. So we do an analysis each year, and we prioritize boundary exception requests. But then we also, after we look at boundary exception requests, then we look at the open enrollment where we have space in the different buildings. And we also look at their requests. So if we're able to accommodate a request, and after the redrawing of the boundaries, Rivercrest has more room with our available sections. So Rivercrest tends to be one where we get a lot more in that area because of our proximity to River Falls. And so we just have a natural spike there, and right now we have the space too. And so the same in Holton, it's the northern edge of our district, and we have lower class sizes up there too for the most part. And so we're able to accommodate more of those requests.
Yes, and that's what you mean by space. We have both the physical space, plus we have the room.
The room
within, without having to hire more teachers.
Exactly. We follow the guidelines, and then as long as there's +1 spot per class section, we're able to accommodate those requests.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for the explanation of the student count. Any further questions on that from board members? Otherwise, I think we have one more report.
Yep, I'll turn it over to Aaron.
All right, so I'll start out, and we'll turn it over to Aaron in just a little bit. So we're going to talk a little bit about our rigor, teamwork, and inclusion model we call RTI Reimagined. We're going to talk about those 3 principles of rigor, teamwork, and inclusion. I'll provide a little background, and then Aaron is going to go over what we call the RTI Equation, and Lisa and Fafani are going to share some of the outcomes that we have related to this framework and the initiative. If you can go ahead to the next slide, Tim. So response to intervention is a concept that has been with us for quite a few years, and it's a solid concept. We still use it to guide our decision-making process. It essentially says that when we're looking at a student's success, if they're receiving extra support, we want to look at how they're responding to the interventions we're delivering. So we say if we're delivering an intervention, say it's extra reading support, how are their reading scores growing over time? Are they responding to that intervention? Very solid framework, but it can also be very limiting because there's a lot of rules, a lot of very tight guidance that goes with it, and sometimes that is a sort of a restrictive process that results in us sorting students. And when we find ourselves sorting students, that's a good sign to say we're not on the right track. We need to re-examine what we're doing. And the concepts of rigor, teamwork, inclusion helped us move in that direction. So if we take a look at some of the reasons we realized we had this problem, one was what we call the masking of inequities. We put out, as Bruce said, a wonderful product. Our students do great. And there's a lot of opportunities for kids, but that doesn't mean that there aren't kids that need more, need additional support, or need to have programs in place that help them find the success that we know they deserve. And we found that the RTI process, response to intervention, was limiting some of those moves that we wanted to make. And we also recognize that, as I just mentioned earlier, many of the solutions to these problems resulted in very specific programs that ended up actually pulling kids out of their classroom with their peers, moving the opposite direction of what we wanted to do. So we reinforced these concepts of rigor, teamwork, and inclusion. And if you take a look at the next slide then, please. That first paragraph there, I'll just read it so everyone understands what we're talking about. We believe that all of our students deserve rigorous and inclusive educational experiences supported by collaborative teams of professionals. We choose to focus our energies on beliefs before we focus on procedures. What we were finding was we were spending a lot of time saying, these are the rules, these are the guidelines, here's the framework, here's the handbook, but not spending enough time building the belief set and the principles that we know will help us make sure that we're making good decisions into the future. Programs and initiatives come and go, but really strong guiding principles can help make sure that we're always moving in the right direction. And honestly, every year, every month, we find other areas for improvement in the district that when we apply these three principles, we end up moving in the right direction. You can see the three definitions that we use for these concepts. It's important to define concepts because words can be used in all sorts of ways, and we know that education is full of jargon. So when we talk about rigor, you can see the definition there. We want to make sure that rigor isn't just about difficulty. Sometimes we hear the word rigor and we think that just means making something more challenging, more difficult. What we want to make sure is that challenge is about problem solving and it's about critical thinking. When we talk about teamwork, we're talking about making sure that we're enabling all professional teams to work together productively, not admiring problems, but solving problems. And then finally, the concept of inclusion. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that our classrooms, our general education classroom spaces, are they first and foremost, they're the best place for all of our students to find success. And certainly there will be reasons why we have to have additional programs, but the more we can make sure that when a student walks into the school, they get to find success with their peers, we know then that we're moving in the right direction. I'm going to turn it over to Erin now to talk about the RTI equation.
Yeah, so Dave had mentioned this RTI equation. This is a graphic that we've been spending a long time going over in depth with our teams and really getting at that belief system about what each one of these means and how these sort of three pillars interact with each other to create really meaningful experiences and outcomes for all students. And, as we start to talk about our strategic plan and how that feeds into this too, this is really how we get to developing, caring, and contributing community members by providing a rigorous, student-centered environment to ensure equitable experiences for all kids. So we believe that all three of these principles should be present in any of our learning initiatives and should be at the forefront of the decisions that we're making through learning support services or at the school level in terms of what it is that we value about the experiences that we're bringing to kids. So the next few slides really kind of talk through when one of these concepts is missing, what we need to be thinking about in terms of programming for all students. So when rigor is lacking, we risk the outcome being that we have a really welcoming environment, but super watered down expectations. And so we need to be thinking about how we have access to that rigor while still having that welcoming environment where all students are getting their needs met. So this may be too much focus on community building without that focus on higher level thinking and access to those sorts of things. And then when teamwork is lacking, we may have unsustainable pockets of excellence. So we might have a general ed teacher and a special ed teacher working on inclusive practices for a small subset of students, but there isn't that larger system of support and a school-wide plan. And so we need to be really mindful about creating and supporting an entire system where this type of collaboration is the norm rather than the exception, so that we're meeting the needs of all students. And then finally, when inclusion is lacking, we are really collaboratively supporting a subset of students. So we may see really high achievement within a small subset of students, but we are really missing the opportunity to include students, have students learn from different perspectives, and provide, again, access to that higher level learning for all students, which we truly believe is what we should be doing and is possible. So really looking at these three components being a part of every single thing that we do so that we're not only holding that achievement piece at a high level, but really looking at that equitable experience and outcomes for all of our students so that we are committed to maintaining our strategic plan and our mission and really living that within everything that we do. So I'm going to turn it over to Fafani and Lisa at this point, and they're going to talk about some specific strategies and specific things that our RTI team has been focusing on.
Now Fafani and I will share examples of actions and outcomes of the Rigor, Teamwork, and Inclusion team. One of our first actions was multi-level systems of support, which focuses on providing equitable services, practices, and resources to every learner based on responsiveness to effective instruction and intervention. This focus prompted K-12 MLSS conversations, and those conversations led to the development of a tool, the Continuum of Supports, which allows for the increase in teachers' capacity to meet the needs of more students in the general education setting. Our work with the Rigor Teamwork and Inclusion Committee presented an opportunity to identify a need at the high school level and develop a high school MLSS data process.
So the RTI team also did a little bit of work around disproportionality. So we can take a look at that slide. And as the definition up there says, that disproportionality occurs when we have one subgroup that is identified as needing services at a higher rate than what you would expect. So for example, with our RTI team, in an effort to specifically address disproportionality in special education, we took some time to really dig into the data and see if we could determine what some root causes may be within that. And through that, then we started these really rich discussions and talking about best practices and how do we meet the needs of all of our learners, whether, it doesn't matter what race or disability or socioeconomic status they're coming to us with. And then that led into more discussion and awareness of Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. And Lisa's going to tell you more about that.
So UDL is a framework to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all people based on scientific insights into how humans learn. To increase the RTI team's knowledge and understanding of UDL, we facilitated a UDL book study, provided specialized training, which focused on UDL strategies and practices to use in the classroom. We updated the curriculum improvement process so that universal design is built into the process with the focus on improving instruction and learning for all students. And an outcome of this learning was the creation of a lab classroom at the high school where teachers are implementing UDL practices and strategies.
And an additional area then that we kind of started to develop was within our co-teaching model, and we are quite proud of our co-teaching model. And I know that Jordan and Ivy were here in December and talked more in depth, so really I just want to highlight for you specifically the role that the RTI team had in helping to develop that as well. When we first began, we had co-teaching teams of a general ed teacher and a special ed teacher at our 4K level and at our high school. So that RTI group really worked to create a plan so that we could expand and get teams at every level. Super excited to say we have teams, we have at least one team at every level. And we've also been able to spend some time reflecting on how we got there, what those successes are, and what have we learned in that process. It's really exciting because we can see where this could take us, not just special ed, general ed teams, but we could expand that to our English as a second language program, gifted and talented. I know we've got reading specialists at the elementary level who are very anxious to get into doing a true co-teaching model. So that's super exciting. And then the next area is the development of an SST rubric. So even with all of these continuum of services that we've kind of been describing this evening, there's still going to be times where a teacher just has that student that they're really concerned about. Are we really doing all the right things? Every building has some type of a process set up for teams to come together and talk about that, to develop student support plans, or to decide, is this the point where we need to make a referral for special education? So RTI, we were able to come up with more of a common definition for that, and that is a process in which a team meets regularly to brainstorm supports for specific students, whether it be for academics or social emotional development. We found common components to SST, those student support teams across the district. Every team is made up of members. They have a process. They have data that they're looking at, and they have a protocol that they follow. And then additionally, we were able to come up with those categorical descriptions of developing, emerging, deepening, and internalizing. And by creating this SST rubric, we found a way for all of our schools to make sure that we're aligned with what we're doing and how we're approaching that, but it still allows each building the autonomy to function in the way that works best for them.
Now, our RTI team has also supported other initiatives, such as the Fastbridge Pilot. So last spring, we had members of the RTI committee, along with department heads, administer our universal screener to students in their math and reading classes. This team was able to provide valuable feedback to learning support services, which helped us facilitate a smooth implementation in the fall. The feedback included benefits such as shorter administration and immediate data retrieval. They also had recommendations such as the kindergarten and first grade teachers will need additional support in the fall because the kindergarten and grade 1 assessments are administered one-on-one, and that takes a long time. So we knew that we needed to support our teachers. And they also suggested clear communication to all stakeholders. They also addressed accessibility. When we administer an assessment to all of our students, some students need accommodations so that they can successfully participate in the assessment. And finally, the pilot teachers were able to assume a leadership position or role during the fall implementation.
As we prepare for questions here, just a few other things that I forgot to mention. One is we have about 60 folks that are part of our Rigor Teamwork Inclusion group. That is a massive group. That's way bigger than you typically see. We meet after school about 3 to 4 times a year. We provide childcare and meals. The meetings are something we always look forward to because they're these really engaging, deep conversations we have. And we have several subgroups that work on moving these initiatives forward. But it's just helped provide some glue to all these things we do to make sure that when we are having these conversations, we have some philosophical underpinnings that make sure we're all talking the same language. And it's been remarkably successful. Very proud of the team, and we appreciate everything they've done to help us move forward. With that, any questions you might have?
Board members have questions?
Mr. President?
Yes.
What's the makeup of that 60-person group?
So it is a cross-section of professionals across the district, certified professionals, classroom teachers, special educators, counselors, school psychologists, principals, instructional coaches, administrators, and I'm sure I'm missing folks, but we tried to make sure that anyone that would be involved in the decision-making or the administration of any of these initiatives is represented.
Any other questions? I'd just like to see that we are, getting our stuff together at a base level point and then building off of common ground. And my question was in relation to the equity study that we had done. Do you see this as building off of that and being consistent with the recommendations that were made from that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Nick mentioned this when we first went through that equity study, that there are things that we're already doing that were aligned. This is an example of something we already had in place, but the information we gleaned from the equity audit helped us refine some of those things to make sure. But certainly it was work that was already underway and was aligned to those equitable outcomes that we're looking for.
I think, Erin, you had something for that point.
I think a specific example of exactly what Dave was saying is the conversation we had around disproportionality. And putting this data in front of our staff and having real conversations about what it is that we believe about all students was incredibly powerful and led us in the right direction in terms of providing the services that all students need, but directly related to that equity audit piece.
Well, yeah, and I think I remember us talking 3, 4, 5 years ago about the fact that we have a subset of students that, really excels, the people that do perfect on their ACTs and so forth. But what we really need to do is be able to bring all learners along, not just, get our average up there because of the success of the top 5 or 10%.
And then we do have specific outcomes on our scorecard as well that align to the work that we're doing to make sure that when we roll out an initiative with Rigor Teamwork Inclusion, it doesn't live in isolation, that it's aligned to an outcome that we've already established on that scorecard.
Very good. Well, thank you for your presentation, Fafani and Lisa. Appreciate it very much. And we'll look forward to another progress report as we continue down this road. All right. Next up, we have the action item agenda. And first up is the consent agenda with the expenditures. Ask for a motion.
Move the approval of consent items and that the Chief Financial and Operations Officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $1,516,240.04.
Second.
Well, it's a light month, I guess. So, all right, for expenditures. All right. We have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have the second
Mr.
Okay,
President, could I-
I'm sorry, we do have retirements,
We do
don't we?
have retirements, sorry.
All right.
So some additional retirements came in over the past month. First up is Jane Branson. She's the athletics or activities administrative assistant at the high school. Really helped servicing the middle school as well. 18 years of service and will be retiring. We have Jill Germain, who is a special ed para at the high school as well as a crossing guard. We love our crossing guards. 21 years of service in the district. Marie Rowe, who is the administrative assistant at the high school, with 17 years of service to the district. Bridget Schuett, first grade teacher at EP Rock, has 24 years of service. And then Tom Helmer, school psych at the high school, has 19 years of service. So we look forward to celebrating all of them this spring at the recognition banquet.
Do we have a date for that yet, or is it?
Still working on that. I'm waiting on a couple pieces from the high school on availability because our plan is to have it back at the high school. Then it gets pretty tricky once we get into May of scheduling some of those spaces. So working
Okay.
on that right now.
We might have a date by
the
next meeting.
Yes, by the work session we should. We're
Okay.
just picking a couple different ones right now.
Great. Well, I want to congratulate all those who have had many years of dedicated service. We appreciate that and look forward to celebrating with them. Next up, we have the Wyland petition to transfer property from the Somerset School District to the Hudson School District.
Actually, just before that, we have the second reading
Oh,
of teaching.
I started that one and I moved my cursor already. Okay, second reading of teaching, learning, and learning policies, which we had the first reading at
Yep.
last meeting.
You've seen this twice already, so administration's recommendation continues to approve second reading.
And there was no recommended or requested changes after the first reading, so.
Correct.
Is there a motion?
Second.
I heard Heather in there
got me.
for the second,
It's
so Bob
true.
motion, Heather second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Then the motion passes and the second reading of those policies from Teaching and Learning Part 2 are approved. Next up, we have the Wyland petition for transfer of property from the Somerset School District to the Hudson School District. This was explained in detail at the last work session.
Just the recommendation would be to approve the acceptance of the property. It'd be contingent on the Somerset School District approving it
So moved.
leaving, so.
So moved.
We have a motion, a second. Any further questions or discussion?
Good luck.
Yes. Don't hold your breath, right? All
I
right.
hope they get in. They're neighbors.
Exactly. It's right there on the border, as you can see with the map up there. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. The
I
ayes
was
have it.
just going to add that there is a bill proposed working its way through the Assembly Education Committee that would only, in this case, the petition would only come here and the school board would decide on it. And so it simplifies things a little bit.
What do you mean? We decide on it and it happens?
Yes,
If
the
receiving
adjoining
district.
district would decide on that.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
So that would open up a whole
It's
slew.
been forwarded, so out of the Assembly Education Committee, but that's what we do.
Well, there are so many folks in this area, and listen, there's some that would maybe want to move to Somerset, but it's, I would say, much greater this way than the other. If you recall, at the bottom of the map there's a home that's basically right on the field next to where I live, and they came. I mean, it's the strangest, oddest carve-out that's not Hudson. Like all around, yeah, that one right there. Strangest thing in the world.
Well,
So
we'll have to talk about how maybe at our work session.
it's a marketing campaign to reach out to those people that didn't get in, baby.
Well, that's the thing, is at our next work session or action meeting, we could propose some type of resolution from our district to put a shout out to Representative Zimmerman to get his support for that, because any way we can clean up those lines in the northern part of our district and the southern, I mean, it's weird islands and zigs and zags. It looks like a gerrymandered district from another political entity or something, yes. But we appreciate your work on that, Tim, anyway, so the motion passed. Next up, we don't have a linked document, I believe, but it's just designating a fund balance for facility projects. And again, this was discussed at length. We had our audit at a previous meeting. And so.
Yeah, so at the previous meeting, we've kind of known that we're wanting to save some money up to help pay for some facility projects that are coming along. This came up as the board decided whether or not they wanted to go for referendum. And so one of the things the board can do is take the official action of designating a certain amount of fund balance and reserving it for facility projects. It doesn't encumber that money into perpetuity. At any point, the board could take action and move it back out into undesignated. But the recommendation for the administration, you can see on the sheets, about 7.4 million of undesignated fund balance would be actually designated for capital projects, which would bring our total capital projects dedication to about $10 million. Should the board decide to go for a referendum or to deal with a large project, you would have $10 million to be able to help reduce the cost associated to taxpayers for borrowing money.
Okay. And I see there a sheet was just passed out.
Yep. Tim can kind of explain.
Yeah, I can walk through this. So, the 630 is just actual numbers, but I guess more importantly, projecting out, the current budget and then projecting out through June 30th of 2023 to see what that looks like. And like Nick mentioned, this is something the board you can commit and you can uncommit. So it allows you a lot of flexibility if you need to fill a gap somewhere else. But so under the budget at 6/30/2022, what we're looking at there, and I'm just going to jump down to the board approved budget unassigned, that was $29,338,000. So what we have in there, we added additional ESSER funds because we're still kind of waiting on what that final number is, but we think it's going to be a little bit higher than we thought. So we're adding that in. That's outside the budget that you approved. And then the governor's coronavirus relief fund, which was November 5th, so that came after you passed the budget. That's $722,000. So when you look at the fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, you have 42.76%. And if you look at in excess of 30%, which is the policy, that's $9.2 million. So again, the whole reason for that, you decided, some of the savings that we had from the pandemic, we had to go through a funding year of 0 increases back to back. So this year and next year, no state funds. We've got the ESSER funds, and that's what we have to rely on with this. But even if you do 7.4 million, that leaves you another 1.8 or 1.9 above the limit there. So projecting out, so you go out a year, and we've again worked up a budget there. It's very, very preliminary. These numbers are going to continue to change, but looking at a deficit of about 3.1 million. However, again, relying on that fund balance and using some ESSER funds down below, about 2.5 million we've estimated would be the ESSER funds we'd receive in 2023. So that still leaves you with 22.9 million, which is 30%. It's at the upper end of the limit. So you're still in very good shape, very, very strong financial position, even though we don't have funding for the 2 years. We're going to backfill and use ESSER funding, which we're able to do for a lot of those things. And that's, again, that was what the legislature wanted us to do. That was kind of the purpose for them giving us 2 years of 0 increase from state funds. They want us to use the ESSER funds. So I'll open it up for any questions.
So your recommendation is to only assign then 7.4, not the whole 9.268 at this time?
Correct. Yeah, we just looked at what does it take to get to 10 million, and I think that's as Nick mentioned, that's a potential. If you go forward with a referendum, potential offset that. If you don't go forward with a referendum, it's also dollars that we can access to get bigger projects done. So either way, it addresses the problem. One's a much longer term solution, But it still helps address that problem.
So technically, if we do this motion now for the 7.4 million, that will bring projected by the end of June of 2023, that committed funds, and I got that LTCP stands for long-term capital projects.
Yes, sorry.
But the 2.5 HI is?
Yeah, that's the self-funded health insurance program. So
Okay.
that's the amount that you approved, putting additional funds in with this budget. So actually, just to clarify, if you do the 7.4 and you do it, you approve that tonight, then it will actually up that on the June 30th, 2022 number. So it'll be 10 million as of tonight.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for the explanation. Is there a question? Yes, Molly.
Yep, I have a question. What's the minimum amount that we need to have? for
It's
those?
25%. So the policy ranges from 25 to 30.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the administration recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Bruce, a second by Molly. This would bring the current balance of the long-term capital project fund to 10 million by transferring 7.4 million, correct?
Correct.
And that would be a transfer from the uncommitted balance that we've been carrying forward over
Right.
the last couple of years. All right, very good. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is successful. Next up, now we have just a general discussion about elementary facilities. So,
Yeah.
Nick, why don't you introduce this?
Yep, actually, all three of these next three kind of all run together. So elementary facilities, although the board chose not to go to referendum in April, doesn't mean that they're going to just go away or that the problems are going to go away. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping this on the radar and trying to understand what direction the board would like us to go. So where we're at to date is our facilities have been evaluated. They've been evaluated by both an architectural firm and a construction management firm. We've identified areas that are going to need work over the next 10 years. And we have also put together a committee and had them come up with recommendations of what they thought the board should potentially look at doing, and there were kind of two main recommendations. One was to reduce the number of elementary attendance centers we have, and the other one was to invest in all of them. You couldn't have two more divergent recommendations or options for the board to look at. As you saw in the elementary or the enrollment numbers earlier in the meeting, we're not growing right now. We have nothing to believe that we're going to have some huge uptick in students anytime soon. We are going to be working, and I put the proposal in there with applied populations out of Wisconsin to do a new enrollment study. The last time we did an enrollment study was 2018, about 4 years ago. It was a 5-year projection. We did it to reset the elementary boundaries, if you remember. And that was the last time we did it, and so that one's basically come and gone, so it's time to do another one. This enrollment projection, however, is a 10-year enrollment projection through applied populations out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison to be able to help us understand what exactly our needs are going to be, or what they best believe our needs are going to be as far as number of students we're going to have in our district. If you click on the enrollment projection proposal, and this is why all three of these kind of run together, basically what they're going to be looking at is, in the next couple months, is they're going to be giving us a district-wide enrollment projection over the next 10 years by grade level and where they think our grades are going to be over the next 10 years. And then some additional services that we will be purchasing is they're going to be doing some different analysis. Tim, I don't know if you can scroll down. The first one is a past housing and household trends analysis, and really that's to continue to look at what is our yield rate. So when we do have new housing that comes online, about how many children, school-age children, could we anticipate that housing generating. Because that's an important number to know. So if all of a sudden the city of Hudson says, hey, we have 80 new homes going up in this subdivision, we have a pretty good idea. Does that mean that's going to generate 10 additional elementary kids, or is that going to generate 200 additional elementary kids? And so we did have that done about 4 or 5 years ago when we did in 2018, but it's time to reevaluate again, because I don't even think we're hitting those yield rates that they were projecting back when they did the numbers. And so this is an important part of the additional service that we would need. The other one, number 2 on the additional services, would be the future housing development analysis. And again, this is something similar we had done. It has come to fruition for the most part. But again, it's where the demographers work with the government entities and developers in our area to try to understand where is the future growth going to happen, when do they see proposed developments coming online, what types of proposed developments do they see coming online, and where. A lot of times, and this was the first thing that I think kind of opened some eyes back in 2015 when our demographer, when we were looking at the high school site, said, yes, I know everybody thinks the new bridge is going to bring a lot of students to Hudson. However, in conversation that person had, with the local government up in the town of St. Joe, in that area, with their no desire to change the lot requirements up there, didn't feel like the new bridge was going to have any real impact on our district at all. And actually, here we are 6-7 years later, and pretty accurate with that. The city of Somerset has grown, the city of New Richmond has grown, and our northern boundary has not grown as far as student population. As we look at that, so this will be important for them to be able to get that firsthand knowledge and try to work those conversations into their numbers, and then they take those things into account as they look at the projections. So it's not just rolling up numbers. It's not just looking at birth rates or just rolling numbers. It's also looking at are the communities going to continue to expand, and at what rate? And then the last piece, number 3 on the additional services, it's at $400 a school. What they will do is give us our enrollment projections for 10 years in each of our elementary attendance boundaries. And they use the GIS system with housing and birth rates and things along those lines to be able to tell us, what do they think our elementaries are going to do, each of our elementaries, long-term over the next 10 years. And getting out past that is really, really kind of a challenge. So we will have that piece of data. I would anticipate, they said once we kind of sign this agreement with them, we would have this piece of data somewhere in the neighborhoods of, probably May or June is when we will have a really good handle on, probably more reiterating what, reinforcing some of the things that we have, because I think what happens is people look in our community and they say, there's no way you can't be growing. Look at all this housing that's going up. How can there not be kids coming? And so this would be an objective view, not the administration's view, not the board's view, but an objective view to look at what our enrollment's going to do. So with those things being said, I guess, the question that we have is, as administration team, is where would you like us to head next with elementary facilities, knowing that they still have needs? Thoughts?
Well, yeah, and I think a little bit of a wrap up, because public doesn't see necessarily the, much in the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was in January. It just says for our agenda discussion about elementary facilities, it just said the board administration discussed possible middle and elementary school projects and the potential for a referendum. After consideration, the board chose not to move forward with a referendum on the April 5th, 2022 ballot. And so it's hard to, we spoke for 45 minutes on this subject at the last meeting. The reason, for the timing of it was because we had a deadline of January 25th. If we were going to go to referendum on April 5th, we had to pass resolutions that night. And, we don't have to take everyone through the whole process, but we had hired the architect to do the facility analysis. We had a community task force to go through and listen to the recommendations, discuss them. And there was recommendation that, there was 2 recommendations that came out of there, and that was to also go to the survey, which we did. But I think it's fair to say the sum of the discussion of the board was that that survey did not give real clear guidance on us moving forward as of April. What we saw was a relatively high number of people who were not sure, need more information. And so we definitely do not want to put this on the back burner. We need to keep it on the front burner, but we need to get the word out, communicating about these needs. We need more support for these projections, and so I hope at the end of this discussion we have a motion to, accept at least the first 3 parts to this applied APP proposal, the projections from, what is that? They're out of Madison, UW.
Yep.
So anyway, with that introduction, I mean, is there other board members, whether it's scope or timing? I'm glad that the applied population lab could move up there. If they said they were going to look at this by next fall, it was going to be too late. We have potential dates for referendum are August, November, and February and April. Those are the 4 days that the legislature gives us. But all things being equal, I think we want to go when there's likely to be elections anyway. We don't want to have to be paying for the entire election in a township if there's no primary, like often there is in February. So other comments from board members? How you want to see us move? Molly?
No. I think we should do all the parts of this, particularly because we're talking about schools, individual schools. I think we need to have that data in front of us, and the community needs to see what the projections are. Not that those things are hard and fast and going to happen for sure, but just that we have to have a little bit better idea. And I think we all need more information, more discussion, more meetings. Does that sound great?
Yeah.
I do think we need to bring this back to the table, and things maybe didn't go 1, 2, 3 done, but none of the referendums we've ever had has been like that. It's always been a long, drawn out process, and I think this is going to be like that until we get to what the community wants to do, but always keeping it at the top of mind that we have to do something, and it's fairly urgent that we do something. So we will be moving forward with something.
Okay. Other comments from board members? Heather?
I'm curious, Nick, looking through APL's materials, both in the packet and online, they don't communicate much their degree of confidence, and I have to believe that with all of their history, they must have some data on that reassures us that they're pretty darn good at what they do. So I think that would be helpful to see, just to reassure us that we're looking at numbers that history would indicate are good. I think to reflect, Jamie, on your question about the discussion last time and where we want to go, I think what I recall was there was we kept coming back to the fact that this is about more than just the buildings, that we have buildings that need work and not doing anything isn't an option. And this intersects with the fact that we also are going to be facing some operational challenges with the financing of our district on an annual basis. And so I think to move forward in a way that hopefully will, in a way that's digestible to folks, help as many members of our community as possible get their arms around both pieces of this, the facility piece and the options with facilities, and the enrollment decline and the financial challenges that's going to bring to our operating budget, and where those two intersect, because folks are going to need to make a decision about our buildings with our district as a whole in mind. Yes, referendum taxes, but also taxes to support the district and how that all shapes out. So I think however we move ahead, it needs to include more information for the public on both of those pieces to help them get their arms with us around this and hopefully a better sense for the best path forward.
And
So I would support going ahead with the study. Yes.
Okay. And Molly, when you said all parts, I mean, the fourth part was just the method of presentation, which we can add to this later. We don't have to commit to a Zoom presentation or
I guess I was thinking the
in-person.
fourth part was the individual school, so my apology, I misunderstood.
No, there's the main part, and then there's these add-ons. And we got, so you're right, there's the first main study and then the first three add-ons. Is there other questions or comments on this? But just to your point, Heather, about their confidence, I think that's part of their, report when they report out the results. But Bruce will recall that we had the process for the between 2014 and 2016, when the PST team met, we had a demographer with numbers, and then there was concern, well, these are so vastly different from the demographer we had when we did Rivercrest that, what's our assurance that these are accurate? So we went to Applied Population Lab, had them do, a very efficient study, but yet their numbers came out amazingly similar to what the demographer had. And unfortunately, we haven't even been able to support those numbers to the date year we're at 2022. We're below the projections from 6 years ago. So, because there's certain things that people can't. Now, one was the Great Recession, and the other was the great cultural change of kids my kids' age not having kids. I should have 6 grandkids by now, but I only got 2. So, yeah. All right,
Mr. President?
Yes.
I would like to comment that, there's nothing to point out that we're going to have a dramatic increase in birth rates, and even if we did, you're talking 7 years down the road. There's nothing about the city plan that shows that we'll get any relief over, you look at the high-density housing where it's going, it's Lake Elmo, it's Somerset, it's New Richmond, it has skipped Hudson, and that's just not going to change. As much as we'd like to maybe grow the district out by Bruce's house through the legislative process, that's not going to do it either. But so I think we have to, we can't do nothing, and we have to get that message out there that it's we're either going to spend the money inefficiently on operations in the future, or we're going to spend it efficiently, and we're not going to. It's not fair to our staff to have 2 section schools with 14 kids in a class. It's inefficient. When other classes have 24 kids, 26 kids in a class. So these are hard truths, and again, I'll mention again that the people that were part of that committee, I've heard people say, well, that you didn't have much of a group we had a fairly decent sized group and very diverse people from across our area, and I again don't want their work belittled. I would like to keep them involved in any future committee work we have too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. I agree. There was a lot of work put into that, and the recommendation was that, we move forward. It's just what they didn't decide was which option. They wanted that to be decided by the community, and they didn't decide the when. But we've got, it's just trying to find that sweet spot when it will occur and to what degree. But to echo what Heather said, it's a multi-phase approach. It's not just these demography studies. That's not going to be the answer to everything. It also it requires education about the budget and the dollars and how we're spending it. So I think we've got probably another, some more work to do in our upcoming work sessions, but this is a good start. So do I have a motion then to adopt the recommendation of administration to move forward with the study and the first 3 suggested add-on components?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Heather, second by Molly. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay, and the ayes have it.
And just kind of as we kind of wrap some of this stuff up, one of the directions we are going to need eventually from the board is how many attendance centers you want to continue to operate at the elementary level. Not that that's a decision that has to happen tonight, but one of the things that has to come up is, as Heather talked about, inefficiencies in how we operate. We have reduced quite a few sections of classrooms over the last 7 or 8 years. We've reduced some administrative positions, we've reduced para positions, we've reduced a lot of different things, but we're at a point now in order to really realize efficiency and savings that we can't continue to operate all of the locations that we currently have. And we have 9 locations if you count this location here, because there's no more way to do it. And so not that there's a time is of the essence. It's just part of the reason why we brought up the conversation about whether or not we go down to 4 elementaries or stay with 6 is we don't want to stick large dollars into buildings that you don't want to hold on to long term. And we do know that once we do start sticking millions of dollars into buildings, we need to hold on to them for a long period of time. Otherwise, that's wasted money. And so we're going to have to probably sooner rather than later start to make some of those decisions about the direction the board wants to go, and not necessarily that the board has to decide to go with new elementaries or add-ons or things like that, but we're going to have to start that because that process then is the messaging of the why we would be looking at those things. Because as we talked about in the facility committee, the savings is a little over $2 million a year, at least operationally, without an impact on class size, to reduce the number of elementary boundaries we have. Now, again, that's, that obviously doesn't make everybody feel comfortable, but there's, one of two things have to happen. We probably either need to reduce the number of boundaries we have and become more efficient that way, or the board is going to have to go to the taxpayers and ask them for an operational referendum to fund additional elementaries so that you can maintain small elementary buildings. So, I mean, we're getting close to that point. I mean, within the next year or so, we're going to have to make that decision on what happens. There is no more under levy to back up against, to backfill. And there's no more ways to kind of pull the efficiencies out if we can't start consolidating some of our sites, because we own too much property, which comes to the next item on the agenda, which is the sale of the UU property. We don't have a buyer for the UU property, nor has anybody said they're going to buy our property. But Jamie wanted this on the agenda to make sure people understood it is for sale. And later in the meeting, we go into closed session. It is to talk about this piece of property and how you would like to sell it. And we're going to go through that in closed session because of competitive negotiation purposes. That's why it's in closed session. But what you see on the screen there is our UU property. It's 109 acres roughly combined. The acreage to the right that's along Crosby is 26 acres. That property was bought in, do you remember, Tim? Do you have that number?
So that one was bought in 1959, the 26 acres. And then
what year? 1959, you said?
Yeah,
Yes.
1959.
Like $2,500.
Yeah, 1959.
Yeah.
For $2,500.
$1,589.
$1,589. So
I
it's
got an
actually
exact number for you.
investment.
Yes.
Right off the top of my head.
So, so that is the 26 acres. It's right off Crosby. It's adjacent to the soccer complex. And then you have the other 83 acres, give or take. That was purchased in 2001. And that property was originally purchased back when they thought that there was going to potentially be a middle school on that site. That never came to fruition. And so we have been sitting on that property, and part of the reason why we sit on that property is because, one, it doesn't cost us anything to sit on it. We don't pay extra to hold on to it. But also, two, it was bought when the market was very hot in Hudson, and they paid, I think, a premium for it. And so it's not a good practice to buy high and sell low. That tends to not be a good practice. And so we've kind of sat on that property for a while. And in the town of Hudson, it's not quite as lucrative because it's similar to when it's in the town of St. Joe, as the lot restrictions are so large that the number of lots that you can get out of that property is not very many. And so what ends up happening is they tend to be really big lots with expensive homes that tend to not generate a lot of kids for us. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in closed session as to the direction you want to go on that. But we want to make sure that people knew that, yes, it has always been for sale. It's just the sign was taken down in 2015, I think, after the referendum failed. 2014, after the referendum failed for the high school. And it's kind of sat there. And now, we'll have to talk about how the board best wants to address dealing with that property. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I just like to remind people that when that property was bought, we were looking at property values going up 15 to 18% a year. All indications were, especially from the city, was that they were going to be actively annexing, and that was the only direction they could go was west. So when people or east. So when people say, "Well, why have you held on to that?" That's the reason why. It was, if things had played out the way they should. But it's further example of we're not going to get back to that normal of 10 to 15% property value growth anytime soon. So.
Right, and this agenda item is one of those legally, we can talk about some things in open session, other things not. So we'd want to stay away from the specific how and the how much part, because that's what we'll discuss in closed session. But just generally, would it be the administration's thought overall that keep the property that was purchased in 1959? It's been not a bad investment. I mean, it's not certainly losing value from what we purchased it for, but the focus would be on the other 83 acres then?
Yeah, I think we wouldn't even need to hold on to all 26 of those acres. I mean, you could potentially look at, the only place our district can expand is east. It's obviously bordered by the river in the west. The only place that it can expand is east, obviously a little bit north, but the immediate expansion or dense expansion would come east, coming off the city if the city continued to annex land. So I would say that even if you were going to sell the property, you would still want to keep about 15 acres, just in case there was some explosions of dense housing, either out by exit 4, where there's quite a bit of land out there that still is farmland, or even continuing down Badlands Road, kind of between Badland, the corner of Badland and Kenny Road. There's quite a bit of land there yet that could be developed. And so if you ever needed to down the road, long-term, add another elementary, that would be the most logical place for it, unless all of a sudden, for some reason, the north side of the district started to explode with growth, but we don't have a whole lot of reason to believe that would be the case. So there's more geographical barriers to that expansion up north than there is to the expansion east. It primarily has to do with sewer and water.
I guess the other part that is more history than anything as far as this particular parcel, it was purchased, and in, was it 2002 or 2003, we had a referendum to build a junior high on that property, an 8-9 building essentially. And obviously that referendum did not pass. One of the most heavily defeated referendums in the 32 years I've been in the community. But part of that too was then when the decision was not to go to 4 levels of schools, keep the middle school concept. But then we looked at it as a potential location for a new high school, and there was all kinds of other problems with that property as far as, it would require a lot of earth moving, and to have ADA accessibility to athletic fields and so forth, it was going to be very difficult. So it ended up not being in the prime location or prime type of property for a high school, and that's why the school district explored south to where, down by the town of Troy there, And that obviously didn't get passed either. So we are pretty well set, I think, for our secondary schools. It's just, you don't know what the future is going to have. So we're talking really long-term here. And obviously that parcel there to the east has been held since 1959. So that's, 63 years by my math. And who knows what the next 63 is going to hold. But any other questions or concerns? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to go to adjourn the open session and go into closed session. Please indicate both reasons and both statutes.
I'll make a motion pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, to consider competitive bargaining with a certified union for the 2022-2023 school year, and B, pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, to deliberate on the sale of public property.
Okay, we have a motion by Bruce and a second by Carrie. This requires a roll call vote. So Bauman. Aye. Hanson.
Aye.
Loglin.
Aye.
Powers.
Aye.
Whitaker. Aye. Johnson, aye. The ayes have it. We'll move into closed session and allow a 5-minute recess to clear the room.